happy to see y'all. Happy to be here with y'all. How's it going?
All good on this end, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
right.
good to see you. And I've been looking forward to this conversation, not just with you, but with you and Patrick.
Here for it. Here
Yeah,
for it. For
yeah,
sure. For sure.
yeah.
So I want to start off by asking if each of you could share a moment in your journey that revealed the urgent need for faith leaders who are ready to heal the world. Like, what was that moment? If you're a comic book fan watching or listening to this, you almost would think of it as like a canon event. What was that moment that you said we need leaders who want to heal the world?
You want to
You can. You
go?
go.
Go right ahead.
Chris, I love the question. This is it's not going to surprise anyone who's uh, read or heard me talk, but I would say my grandma going and advocate. I wouldn't even say advocating out in the world. I mean, it was advocating within the Catholic Church, St. Joseph's in Bakersfield, knowing
Mhm.
that sitting there in mass with her and listening to a priest say something that was a little not theologically sound. Let's put it that
Mhm.
way.
Fair.
And my grandma pulled me aside and saying, let's go meet home because she was going to be first in line to meet him
Yeah.
and correct the record. And so I think for me, like that moment of seeing my grandma, who was a lay Catholic woman and loving generations of Reyeses and Contreras that were, all my family in that one church and
Mhm.
holding the church accountable to being a more its most loving self.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's when I was like, all right, this is a thing. This is going to be a call.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Similarly, I think for me, let me say, I think some people hearing that question would be looking for something, that has happened in the last, couple of years
Mhm.
that would signal why we need to have healing centered leaders.
Mhm.
And and I don't think that there is something that has happened in the last couple of years that has signaled the need for that, but that um, we've always needed that.
Mhm.
And I think about I grew up in Newark, New Jersey,
Mhm.
in the aftermath of the riots of 1967,
Right.
and then this, uh, town that had been then abandoned,
Mhm.
neglected, and under resourced, and people turning on each other, and families really struggling. And I think about the people who were carrying their own wounds, the adults who were carrying their own wounds, but were so determined to make sure that I understood, I had voice, I had agency, that what we were dealing with was not something that I caused, right?
Mhm.
But that it was a reality that I would need to learn how to challenge
Mhm.
and navigate and dream and imagine differently.
Mhm.
And what is amazing to me every time I reflect on what it meant to grow up in Newark is that I always think about those people, those adults who stood up, who were carrying their own wounds,
Mhm.
and who at the same time were teaching me the songs of revolution and the songs of faith. They were teaching me the stories of hope. And I think that we have been in this, if we want to get contextual, even more
Mhm.
contextual, like this whole journey in from the colonies to the United States of
Right.
America, right? That we have been immersed um, in violent stories,
Mhm.
in violent. Um, um, it's just been a spirit of violence.
Mm.
And how then how do you navigate that violence in the ways that it has wounded you,
Yeah.
and also seed hope
Mhm.
in the rising generation? How do you make tools available to them? Um, and so that's always been. We've always needed healing centered leaders
Yeah.
who can navigate truth.
Right. Right. And I think something that's so powerful to me that stands out in both of your answers is the sense of leaders in response to what power is saying, or in response to what power is doing or not doing, right? Like thinking about, you know, Abuela being at church, like, nah, we're going to talk to them immediately. And then thinking about, you know, living in East Orange for some time and going to Newark regularly and thinking about the ways and just cities all over the United States, you know, living in Richmond now, where you can see, you know, Richmond has a broad street as well. I'm like, you can see the sort of
Yes.
demarcation point of like, after the
Yes.
riot happened, they stopped, you know
Yes.
what I mean? Just thinking about what it means to respond and the sorts of leaders we need to respond to these crises. You
Hmm.
know, when we're talking about this sort of like leadership and understanding that it's really like a global conversation that we're having, what do you think are the most pressing qualities that are missing about leadership in faith communities today? And what gives you hope? Like, what is that ingredient you're like, we need more of this? But also, what are you noticing in those leaders? Maybe like leaders on the rise that makes you say, I still have hope. There's still a path forward.
You go this side.
um, I think we're always disadvantaged when leaders are not grounded,
Mhm,
and it's diff. And I try to have compassion for all of us leaders
mhm,
because um, we're most often responding to crises,
mhm.
and and the kind of crises, the culture of crises that you don't uh, um, get a chance to create a plan for, right?
Right.
You're always responding to some crisis, and what's missing is our understanding of the value of our groundedness,
Mhm,
right? To understand that our faith, our traditions, our culture, those things ground us,
mhm.
and also resources. They give us tools, not just to respond to the crises, but to live our lives with joy and hope and resistance and creativity and imagination.
Mhm.
And they keep us accountable. And if there is anything missing with leaders, I think it is whatever is the wind that helps us to value our groundedness,
Mhm.
that pushes us to remain grounded when the sexy and popular thing is not to be. uh,
Right.
yeah, that's what I would say is missing.
Mhm,
The only thing I would add to that is places to practice. So, I think it's interesting to me that leadership is a daily occurrence, that the stakes for those who are in faith communities and who are cultural leaders, the stakes are really high. I mean, we're talking about people's lives, the
come on.
births, deaths, and we're talking about major life transitions. When people come to a chapel, and it's not because, hey, my coffee was really good this morning. I mean, maybe that's how
Right.
the conversation starts, but
Right.
like that's not people
It
get
is.
on the call. So like the
Yeah.
stakes are really high, and I feel like unlike other professions, like
Mhm,
take professional sports or performance arts, or even the visual arts, like people have time to practice. You practice those
mhm.
the brush strokes, or you get
Yeah.
to go out and
Hmm.
have a rehearsal, or you get to just literally call it practice and go and
Yeah.
run plays just with your own team, just to kind of see, like, to build the muscles and capacities and skills that you need in order to perform really well in leadership.
Right.
There's not a lot of places where to do that. We're just like always on at 100%, just saying like the clock is always running on us.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
need, I think what's really missing is not necessarily something within leaders themselves, but in our ecosystem or our system is where are the places to practice to like say, okay,
Hmm.
I understand I'm a novice at this. I'm going to be approaching new challenges, and I need a chance to kind of like work out how my approach to those things impacts other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So finding more places. I know that's what we're doing in Auburn is trying to create places for leaders to practice
Mhm.
with each other to try to get better at at what it means to actually lead and be accountable and to love other humans, which is our call and our work. And yes, that last piece on hope. When people do have the chance to practice and get that little mirror up, they start to
Mhm.
see some real gifts in themselves and leadership. They get
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
see where
Mm-hmm.
they really shine. They get to
Mm-hmm.
also see that shadow side and say like, oh, hey, I could probably be a little
Mm-hmm.
more patient, or I don't
Come
have to
on.
answer every email. Those
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things where they get that insight, I think helps them in their own healing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
No doubt.
the practice. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah,
Here
I
for it.
I love that note.
Mhm.
And thinking about just my own experiences, the places to practice. So that's where you learn that leadership is not transactional. That's
Yes.
the places to practice is where you fall in love with people.
Right.
Falling in love with people helps you resist falling in love with power. Falling in because they'll
Come
let
on.
you do not have the power.
Right. Right. For real. For
Yes,
real.
yes, I
No,
love
no,
that.
no. Thank you. Thank you for lifting it up because it is, you know, there's something about, and I think that what you just said, Reverend Emma, connects back to that whole notion of being grounded, right? Like if
Mhm,
you're just so, if your source really is the sense of like, I feel so great because I'm in charge. I feel so great because people are saying all these wonderful things about me. Once that ends, you're just gonna fall like Icarus. You know what I mean? Your
mhm.
your, your wings are gonna melt. But that sense of being connected and grounded in community, grounded in faith, is essential. So thank you for lifting it up for sure.
Yeah.
You know, so something that I wanted to tap into is when you think about all of the crises that are happening simultaneously. Racial injustice, climate change, like all the different ways that leaders could be spending their whole time focusing on. A lot of leaders, both clergy and lay leaders, are overwhelmed by these crises. What does effective leadership development look like in this context where it feels like the whole world's on fire?
There you go.
No, I'm like, this is the guy right here. This is the guy right here.
Within our industry, Chris, I think your
Mhm,
question is a question for faith leaders to go back to Emma's last answer around what's grounding them in their own traditions and their own
Mm,
practices. How are they steeped in those lineages, leadership lineages? We come from an ancestral tradition. I mean, there's a reason why Matthew opens up with a here's your lineage.
yeah.
Right.
right.
So I think there's a like going deeper um, on how we're trained, equipped in our traditions. I think that's where we're starting to miss a little bit, where
Mm,
we don't go back to the text, or we don't go back to the prayers or the songs or the practices that we have in community, and we start just trying to address. We become a, a climate crisis organization, and while that's important to be addressing those things, if you don't tie it
right.
back to the stories that ground you and that that you're trying to teach that next generation, you're
Mhm.
missing the through line there. You're trying to solve a big adaptive global challenge
Come on.
with a solar panel. That's not going to work. Like
Right.
how are you tying these things together? And there's ways and the ways that we lift up stories within our own traditions and texts that can have great impact on future generations, where you start talking about, well, we want to be able to see the stars. Oh, but,
Hmm.
there's tons
Mm,
of writing about clean water. Like, why
Hmm.
do we need to tap?
come
Moses
on.
was told to tap the rock so that way the water comes out and is flowing and is clean and people can drink, and
Yeah.
doesn't get it right the first time because he's not doing it right. Like, how are
Right.
we playing with those types of stories to educate a new generation around our own care, and from these
Mhm.
stories matter a lot to us.
Mhm. One of the things that Pat and I talked about early on in our working together was just this notion of like whack-a-mole leadership, right?
Right.
Um, Ginwright, I hope I'm pronouncing his name. He talks about that
Hmm.
in some of his work. But it is this idea that you get focused around these particular issues and you start addressing these particular issues and you hit one and it
Hmm.
pops up, something else pops up someplace else and then you whack that and then
Yeah.
there like your life and the story of
Hmm.
the community like becomes whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
And I think the the opportunity that faith leaders have
Hmm.
again is to lean into tradition and values and their rootedness
Hmm.
and to engage in the necessary truth telling,
Yeah.
right? Coupled with care, but truth telling.
Hmm.
Because when you're trying to help your people understand that this looks like it's about housing,
Hmm.
Come on.
right? It looks like it's about mass incarceration.
Right.
But at the root of it, it is this like stratification of humanity, like this
Hmm.
unequal humanity. It is
Right.
the alienation. It's all of that. And
Hmm.
and so how do you in the telling of that truth and putting that on the table with people to engage around that truth, yeah, you get to then look at not just this is a housing issue, but who's my neighbor and do I care that these human beings, have housing,
Right.
and then also how am I contributing, to this, the continuation of this
Yeah.
issue, even if it is in the ways in which I need to show up differently in the rooms that I have access to, asking different
Hmm.
kinds of questions, putting different questions on the table. We have the opportunity to use for the good the
Hmm.
resources that we have
Yeah.
um, to get a fuller picture and to not get lost in the pursuit of conquering symptoms. You know,
Oof.
it is the what's the ailment here?
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful to me, because you really could spend your whole life just chasing the symptom, but if you never
Mhm,
get to the root, like what you're talking about,
mhm,
you've done all your labor in vain. I thank you for lifting that up. That's really, my goodness. I think about going back to what you were saying, Patrick, about the ways I've seen like mission drift happen in an organization. Like now, because climate
mhm,
change or whatever the issue of the day is really important, we're going to do this. But it's like, no, then we're just going to continue to just like chase all of these monsters rather than staying grounded. Once again, that understanding of being grounded in your traditions. Like, what are the stories that we've told for centuries now that continue to nourish our people and give us the tools to be able to do the work that needs to be done in this time.
mhm.
You
And there are competing stories out there,
Yeah.
Right.
right? Like
That's fair.
this isn't. I mean, even from 25 years ago,
Hmm.
we have 24-hour cable television.
Right.
You have religious voices even
Mhm.
propagating, telling, different stories.
Yeah.
And so the work of bringing people back
Hmm.
to the story and um, I guess reveling in or celebrating their ability
Hmm.
to even engage what you might think are heavy matters.
Right.
Um, that's work that is continuous. It has to be because it's like a water hose now,
Hmm.
in their faces, and they're constantly hearing the stories of our separateness and
Come on.
all of, and that we don't have to care about each other, and
Right.
it doesn't matter to us, you
Right.
know, that we should only be concerned about our own
Hmm.
children. Those stories abound.
Yes, absolutely. So how do you, with all of these stories that are pulling us away from community, pulling us away from an interdependence, what sorts of stories are you seeing that we can tell to sort of like counterbalance that? What kind of stories can we tell in faith, leadership, and community that challenge those stories that are on, like you said, 24 hours a day? I remember hearing stories about when TV used to go to sleep. They said the national anthem and then went to bed. TV doesn't do that anymore. You can watch
That was
TV.
my day.
That was your day. I heard stories of olden times, right? There's a time when TV used to go to bed. TV's awake 24 hours a day. What stories can we tell to sort of challenge those stories?
Mhm. I giggle and I laugh because I'm so excited to be working with Patrick B.
Yeah.
Reyes,
Mhm.
Yes.
and this has just been um, something that has excited me about his leadership.
Awesome.
Is the cultivation of stories. So,
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about this all morning, so that's also why we're smiling about it. Like that's
Love
been
it.
the focus of our conversation. And one of the things that I love your question, Chris, is one of in this new era of media and story where we're constantly, I mean, like the fire hose, not just of the problems, the issues of the day, but
Mhm.
just the number of stories and content that people are consuming.
Yeah.
People are spending on average, 6 to 8 hours on their phone, just doom scrolling every day. So
Yes.
there's an abundance of content, abundance of stories. And I think that the temptation in our field right now is to say, well, to the question, what's the
Mhm.
counter story? How do we find some
mhm,
story that's going to cut through the noise and take up space? And what people are like, advertisers or big companies, they're competing for seconds or minutes of your attention in
Yes.
the attention economy. And I think the thing that our field, that churches, that congregations, community leaders can do is actually offer in a new how do not necessarily offer a brand new story. There's plenty of them out there. Then we can, and
Hmm.
Em and I both have our favorites that we can go
mhm,
and say, hey, we think these are stories that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah.
But we've been really practicing trying to think about the process of
Hmm.
how do you host people differently? Again, drawing on our traditions that allow for new stories to emerge authentically, and maybe not even on social media, like in
yeah.
circle and in community
Yeah.
that drive people back to each other to like learn and be more curious about our histories and our stories. And I
Hmm.
think that how we do that, um, I think is worth investing in. How we not only tell stories, but how do we listen to stories?
Come on.
That no one has that, or at least you were at the. I mean, you were at the storytelling. One of my favorite moments. I'll throw some out. So my favorite moments in the storytelling gathering last year at Riverside was we made the invitation after the first day. So this is national group of storytellers like yourself, people who
Hmm.
are great at this, podcasters, preachers, filmmakers, um, to tell us a story in 5 minutes or less. Tell us to choose a story.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember that second day. It was a little bit painful. Like, these are people who do this profession. Everyone has
Yeah.
has a vision of like what storytelling should be or could be, or
Right.
the impact of it, and like the word just evokes a certain little like self knowledge. Of course, I'm an
Oh
expert
yeah.
in storytelling because we get it and receive it so often. But
Right.
one of the few stories that was told very directly was by our director of storytelling and interchange, Erica Littlewolf,
Oh yeah.
who told a story, who like told a story that had a beginning, middle, and end,
Yes.
was very personal, was about
Yes.
the ancestors and an experience that she had. And I just love that was an invitation for me to say, okay, we're not very good at this sort of like interpersonal sitting down and sharing our stories with one another, our traditions with one another, because we're so attuned to like trying to make noise. Like
Mhm,
Yes.
how
mhm,
do we make noise with everybody else?
Right.
And so as you know, like that was a long version of your answer that we're really focused
All
on the
good.
how. How do we host a different type of circle that can actually be healing through storytelling?
mhm.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what freedom would have looked like, or if we would have even had any semblance of it,
Yeah.
if we had had social media, um, like before emancipation, right?
Right.
The ways, the ways in which people were gathering to tell each other the stories of who matters,
Yeah.
um, which would have been all people matter, right?
Right.
That the ways in which in the language that they were using, like about how to navigate oppression,
Yeah.
um, like the you would not have had the Underground Railroad
No.
broadcasting,
Right.
its plans,
Right.
and the minutes of its meetings
Right.
on Facebook, right? Like that's not how that would have happened.
No.
But those places where people met were sacred places
Come on.
where, as they are in the struggle, they were in the struggles,
Yeah.
for liberation, and hearing stories that were about the value of all humanity,
Mm-hmm.
that they had a right to be free. It was a God-given right,
Come on.
to be free. That in fact it was God's plan,
Come
right?
on.
That they be free, that all people be free.
Yeah.
But the 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 difficulty we have now
Mm-hmm.
is, maybe it's identifying who are we talking to,
That's so real.
right? Like who in the storytelling, who are we? what who's
The
in it?
audience. Yeah. Yeah.
Are we talking to each other,
Right.
each other, or is this content, right, for Facebook or social
Yeah.
media, or whatever? And those are that's difficult
Mm-hmm.
to navigate. So
Absolutely. You, Reverend Emma, you said that, and you made me think of people live tweeting, "I'm about to go down the Underground Railroad right now.
yes,
Harriet's coming in 2 minutes.
yes, uh-huh.
Come
Look at
get ready with
Harriet's
me."
dress,
Look at Harriet. Yeah, here's a picture of
right?
Harriet's dress.
Giving
Selfie.
details of the
Right.
right.
Yeah. Just no, and to your point, I do think we have an audience problem. Like when you think about like whose gaze are you performing for, right? Like in storytelling, sometimes people talk about like the white gaze or the male gaze, like some way that like you're performing for the powerful. Like, are you doing all this talking just to be justified in the eyes of the powerful, or to your point, are you telling the stories so that we can get free? Like
Mhm,
that's what I think people are in the middle of, because I think a
mhm.
lot of what looks like freedom to people is actually bondage, because they're doing it so that they can get rich rather than doing it to actually get people free.
Yeah, yeah. So, and another aspect of this is the ways in which we have made it acceptable for people to consume other people's leadership,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That and we talk about this a lot.
Hmm.
I am a descendant of enslaved Africans,
Yeah.
right? And there are ways in which people expect me as a Black woman to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And and my question is always, and how are you showing up? Like what are
Right.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
But what are you doing? And that there's a way in which we want the um, charismatic leader to
Mm-hmm.
arise with the solutions,
Yes.
and to be able to convey them, you know,
Right.
CNN and at the rally and whatever,
Come
whatever.
on.
All we have to do is consume that. We
Right.
don't have to be faithful and accountable to it, right?
No.
Just consume it,
Mm.
and we think that's the work,
Yeah.
and it's not. That's not the work.
Right.
That's not the movement.
No.
And it's certainly not like the pulse of what our community life should be. We're all
Hmm.
leaders. You know
Right.
what Ella Baker said?
That's right. That's right.
Baker,
Ella Baker, the great Ella Baker for sure.
Mrs. Ella Baker, right?
Let it be known. That's right. Because to your point, I do think it's a lot easier for any of us to just repost something or to just say I went to go hear, Reverend Emma, I went to go hear
Mhm,
Dr. Reyes speak, and that's it. And like
mhm,
by virtue of me being in the room,
mhm,
hearing what you've labored over with your lived experience, now I've done something, and that doesn't really cut it because
mhm.
this has to be participatory. Otherwise, we're just doing
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
show and tell, you know,
yeah.
absolutely. So with that in mind, how do you imagine, you know, leaders taking care of themselves so they're not experiencing the burnout of trying to boil the ocean? They're not experiencing the burnout of trying to do all the labor by themselves instead of learning how to like wisely delegate. What sorts of practices or habits do you all encourage leaders to cultivate in order to sustain themselves and to sustain their communities for the long haul? That this isn't just something we're going to do this weekend. This is a part of our rhythms now. How do you encourage folks to take on these sorts of practices and the habits that will sustain
You go.
them? Tag, you're it,
And he will jump in here. But the
Yeah.
question is, what practices do you have?
Mhm. Mm. Yeah.
Um, which not everybody. There are some, I should say, who come from communities where their practices are very developed, highly developed.
Yeah.
They're shared generationally.
Hmm.
And then there are some folks who come from communities where their practices have to be rediscovered.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
and so that's the question. What are your practices?
Yeah.
And our communities have different practices, and
Right.
we should, right? And we should be mindful of what our community's practices are. You can
There it
you
is.
can you can be edified by other communities, but you really do need to. What are your practices?
Hmm.
And so um, that's a major question for me. One of my practices, clearly from my community, is all the ways in which I engage the spirituals,
Hmm.
the singing of
Hmm.
those songs, the interrogating the lyrics, like what do they mean,
Yeah.
and it's the way in which I am, um, like I need to be in fellowship.
Yeah.
I need to gather regularly,
Right.
not forsake the fellowship,
Come on.
uh, right, of our people,
Yeah.
um, and rehearse, the rites of whatever, is happening that week in our lives
Yeah.
together. Um, those practices mean a great deal to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How about you? How about you,
I
Chris?
mean, for me, it's about people and place. I would decenter time in
Mhm.
ways that I think is really uh, white, Western, capitalistic. What do they
Yeah.
say? Like the only thing that people show up on, or white people show up on time for, is colonization. So, like,
Mm.
like,
Word.
the my invitation would be just to think about people and place. I mean, we're in the middle, as we shared before we got on here, in the middle of a move, which is new for me, a new place. But
Right.
my kids are make fun of me because the coffee shop next door, it's my best friend apparently. It's, you go see your best friend again. We've only been here 4 days.
That's right.
So, like, committing to a time and place, and the reason why I say decentering time is, I think a lot of leaders, especially those who are in the, trying to do justice work or
Hmm.
ministry or any sort of in the helping professions in
Yeah.
general, they feel so committed to the work that they imagine it's a forever thing, and that,
Hmm.
when, I
Hmm.
think you said this earlier, Chris, around like when there's that disconnect, it's an identity
Yeah.
crisis,
Yeah.
because they've centered something that was never meant to be centered.
Right.
And I think for me that, committing to the place that you're in and the people that are around you just provides such a more healthy balance of vocation of one's leadership, and do a whole little workshop around how to keep your donut healthy and
Yeah.
not move it, making sure that there's balance and harmony in your life.
Right.
One of the biggest things is to know that, like, to leadership happen all throughout your life, just like vocation happened throughout your life. So when you go back to imagine when you were 5,
Yeah.
you had leadership on the playground,
Mhm.
playing,
Absolutely.
but you, like, that was 100% then, and you weren't as anxious about holding on to it, that moment. Like, I was in charge of the pirate ship for a whole 30 seconds
That's right.
on the playground,
That's right.
and I was the captain, and
Mhm.
I didn't imagine at 5 that I was going to be captain forever, and try to kill all my other 5-year-old friends off and throw them off because I need to be in charge of this this
Come
pirate
on.
ship. So I think
Yeah.
that one of the things I'm seeing that's really unhealthy in our leaders, and we just did an
Yeah.
executive leadership turnover study, is that they
Yeah.
get so hyped up on, I was meant to be captain of my ship,
Right.
For
just
real.
because I'm in this new stage of life and I'm trying to extend that as long as possible. And
Yeah.
I think if people can start letting go of that and just say, there's moments of when their leadership will be called, and that
Yeah.
each
Mhm.
moment, those are
Mhm.
honest, truthful, fully alive vocational moments, but those will have ending, and that to
Yeah.
be prepared and prepare those who are coming behind, and for those who will come in generations from now, that they have
Right.
something worth stepping into. I think it's such a gift, and a
Truly.
way of making ourselves, what I say, like, I saw a cool bumper sticker that said, like, even sidekicks are superheroes, and,
For
like,
real.
this idea that we're not all the heroes in our own journey or in the
Right.
world, and everyone else is just a sidekick. Like, everyone else is living full lives, and to invite them in and to be a part of our lives is what a gift it is to be a part of that, and to have the humility to say, I'm not supposed to be the
Mhm.
person.
Come on.
um, I'm not him.
Yeah.
You're not him, right? It's so real.
Okay,
So real.
yeah,
So real.
But if
Yeah.
you come to our programs,
yeah,
Yes.
our leadership programs, you're going to spend some time with this question. And it
Mhm.
won't be, what does Pat do?
yeah,
Yeah.
What can I do what Pat does? Or
yeah.
how can I do what Emma does? But
Right.
what do I need to do?
Come on.
What is available to me? What am I connected to? What is meaningful
Yeah.
to me?
I love that you lift that up, because it can be so easy. You know, you both are superheroes, so it's very easy, right? So someone that's just say, okay, that's what they did. Like Patrick gets coffee, I'm gonna get coffee. You know what I mean? Like Reverend Emma likes to hear spiritual, I'm gonna listen to spirituals. Like, it's so easy to
Yeah.
just want to, like, just trace those steps, but that's not how it goes.
Mm, mm-mm,
Yeah, I hear that for
no.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
What
Chris,
superheroes
one
are
other
we?
practice I want to say, because we
Mm,
started this before you get on, around the you being the director of the Freedom School. Like, anyone, just spend time with anyone between, like, the ages of, like, I don't know, 2 to like 6, 7,
for real.
because it doesn't matter what you do in the world.
That's most humbling thing on the planet.
They're 100% in the moment and calling you
Yes.
out on everything. I mean, my
Yes.
school, I do all, speaking and public stuff, and I still have nonsense about reading to Ashers for when they were 5 in their kindergarten
Yes.
class, and just bombing, book on children's book that was clearly written for adults, but I was like, oh, these kids are gonna love it. And I'm reading,
Right.
they were actively falling asleep.
Yes.
Like, they hated every moment of it. You need that in your life. Like,
You do.
feedback, like, oh, like, I've had to beg to come back. So, like, I'm really not doing that. We will do the book with no pictures next time. I'm
That's
so
right.
sorry.
That's
You know?
right. The class waitlisted you, say, now next time we'll
That's
see.
right. That's right. They were
We'll
like,
see. We'll call you.
yeah,
Oh, that is so funny. That's so. But no, dude, I love that you lift that up, because kids really keep you grounded. Going back to that central theme, and just like the honesty, like they don't have any. They're not on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? They're not trying to, like,
Yeah.
say, oh, how do I move up this career ladder? They just tell you exactly what it was. It was either good or not, and that's all it is. So just
that's
something
right.
about spending time with children and bringing us back to, like, I'm always thinking about just within the Christian tradition, this understanding of being childlike and not childish, right? Like, what does it mean
Mhm.
for us to just remember those core principles that we had as children and how life tries to strip that away, but we got to continue to return to it, you know?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Both of y'all do such uh, incredible, like, data driven work, work that is informed by research. What sort of emerging data or insights are exciting y'all about the future of faith leadership? Like, what trends are you noticing that you're like, okay, the kids are all right, we're gonna be okay? Like, what do you notice in the faith leadership that excites you?
Yeah, this is where we depart because
So the trains go like this.
yeah, it's an acknowledgement of our capacities, our gifts, our training.
Yeah,
And so I'm a pastor
yeah,
called in this moment, to do what I've done.
no
And
doubt.
Patrick uh, is the king of all else.
I read a lot.
I read a lot.
And not just love books
No.
with no pictures.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's
Oh,
amazing.
I mean, we can start with our what we're reading about our emerging leaders, the folks who have been coming
Mhm.
through the, just over 100 in the last 2 years that have come through. The thing that I'm really hopeful about, or I'm seeing
Mhm.
in their applications, we did an ecosystem study a couple of years ago that
Mhm.
looked at what the faith leadership, justice movement workers or folks who are in those leadership positions needed.
Yeah.
And overwhelmingly said we need grounding, we need spiritual traditions, we need like training opportunities, all that stuff. And so we came into that, I think, with an invitation for our emerging leaders to say, okay, folks need a grounding in their own tradition. We need to
Mhm.
like provide them with more, literacy, religious literacies down. So we need to do some more 101 stuff and to ground them. And
Right.
what we're finding is that actually the folks who are coming and who are really benefiting most from our programs, that they check the grounded box. That's how we know they're going to stick in their leadership, or how
Okay.
they're committed to going deeper because they already are pretty deep themselves
Yeah.
in the thing. And for that, to me, gives me a lot of hope in that we're not trying to convince anyone, we're not trying to make the case for, but the
Mhm.
people who are actively seeking this, trying to be equipped on how to build community better, how to bridge divides, how to pursue justice and heal the world, are the ones who are actually really grounded in their community. So like
Yeah.
we're seeing on the data side from our programs, that's who wants this. And so that means that there's going to be people out there who are for generations, are going to be leading in
Yeah.
ways that they know that they're committed to this.
mhm.
That part's the upside. The flip side of the research that I'm loving, I think, in the, there's all the counterpoints, the polarization that's happening in the world and all that,
Sure.
especially in our society.
Mhm.
But there's also a counter narrative in the, kind of research on, I guess, they would be soft skills, or even values like
Yeah.
love, happiness, joy,
Mhm.
meaning, that there are ways that are drawing on our religious and cultural traditions.
Mhm.
You look at a place like Greater Good Science Center, look at their 9 markers of what it means to live a meaningful life. And
Mhm.
then the practices that they go and they assess for, they use out in the field, or the research that they're pointing to that goes out into the field. Those are our religious and cultural practices from our communities that
Mhm.
they're using. I mean,
Yeah.
it's cased in positive psychology, but it
Yeah.
is like, sitting and meditating for taking 5 minutes of silence,
Yeah.
or singing together. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're providing evidence for why religious and cultural traditions are meaningful and necessary, to build community and to bring people together. So
Mhm.
for me, that's a big upside. I wish the connection was more directly made by
Right.
that side of the field, but to see that, those connections being made, I mean, it makes a case why our leaders are so necessary.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you ensure that whatever work's being done, particularly with research, isn't just something that lives in theory, not just sitting on the shelf, but is actively shaping practice, policy, and lived realities? Because something I've often worried about whenever I've left like a great gathering, whether it be like a conference or like a fellowship, whatever the situation is that there's always so much good energy there. And the intention is to send it out, and everyone's going to be applying it to their local context while still staying connected, regionally or internationally, whatever the case is. But oftentimes that energy just fizzles out. People just go back to their regular lives. Like, how do we ensure that we keep the fire burning, so to speak?
Mm. You remind me of something. First of all, like, what kinds of questions are you asking?
Mm-hmm.
There are times and places and folks and groups who ask questions that are very interesting questions, but no one cares.
Yeah.
It means nothing to no one, right?
Real.
And Auburn has had a history and practice of asking incredibly meaningful questions.
Yeah.
And I can attest
Mm-hmm.
that the question that was asked, for instance, the research question that was asked around student debt,
Mm-hmm.
help me, right?
Yeah.
Helped me in seminary, right?
Right.
And helped others,
Yeah.
and still, continues
Mm-hmm.
to help the field to ask questions about what we are saddling
Yeah.
students with. I think I may have been on the board of a seminary when that report came out.
Yeah.
But it's the question meaningful,
Yeah.
and we have asked some meaningful questions just in this last year.
Mm-hmm.
To say on research at Patrick can talk about.
Yeah. I mean, before I get to our research, because it is about the leadership turnover, we did a leadership study.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say this is like going back to that question. I think your question is pointing at behavior change,
Yeah.
experience. And this is, again, why we need to teach our traditions.
Yeah.
Because to me, I don't know any other text that's as long as the Bible
Mm-hmm.
as behavior change is really hard. No matter how many times you go to the mountaintop,
Yeah.
and people are still people in everywhere,
Right.
all the time. So like we have stories that like it seems to be human nature, and that we have some really great stories to draw on to say that sort of experience where you come and you have this heightened moment of like, clarity of what I'm supposed to be doing, and then life happens.
Right.
And behavior change, that opportunity to practice and build new habits and skills, is actually really, really hard, and a lot harder when you're at home, surrounded by people who are saying, "Remember when I changed your diaper?"
That part.
Like that it just makes it really hard to do behavior change. And one of the ways that we're trying at Auburn is we just did an executive leadership study. And here's the thing: we're both in theological education. Our institutions are, at ATS institution the last 7 years, almost or more than 600 executive leaders, that's presidents and deans, have turned over. There's only 270 institutions.
My goodness, right.
So when you think about that, that's at least everybody plus some, that has transitioned in that. The average tenure is 4 to 5 years for a dean, 5 to 6 for a president. You think about just the limitation of time for institutional management. That's not enough time to shift anything.
No.
That's also not enough institutional knowledge. It also shows you the fragility of our field.
Yes.
So I'm really curious. We partnered with Michael Blashman, who's down at General Theological Seminaries. Their senior vice president, used to be their president before they merged with Virginia Theological Seminary, to ask folks who had stepped out of these roles. There had been a couple studies previously on folks who were in the roles around the challenges of it and what the leaders at the time thought. And so we said, no one's asked those of those 600 why they left.
Right.
Like
good question.
Why are you leaving? What are the challenges and opportunities for the field? And so we did that, and we found some great insights around what do leaders need to be successful? What do institutions need to be successful in supporting their leaders? Some basics, like the most successful leaders found that they had a strong spiritual and communal life outside of their institution.
Very real.
Outside of their institution, they had a strong support network, that they had a great team. That they had a team that they could trust and rely on. and that they had support of the larger board. That these
Real.
like people who are saying, yeah, we trust the mission of this institution with the executive leaders, and they weren't micromanaging them, that sort of thing.
Right.
That these sorts of and then the last one that is ours is to thinking about, or how we're thinking about implementing, is that it's not that, going back to your thing, tenure, like how long you're in a role does not define how successful you were at that institution.
For sure.
It's actually about how well you're setting up future generations. And so we've been drawing on insights from DeLashman's study to try to say, okay, well, if we know this from the field, what would leadership look like here at Auburn?
Yeah.
Take on that to encourage our folks and our leaders who work here to have strong commitments and faith and spiritual lives beyond Auburn. Auburn's not your church, it's not your congregation, it's not your political home.
Come on.
You need to have that outside and to bring your best self and bring your tradition here in the ways that it informs our work, but to have that as like an anchor for you. What are the ways that we're supporting to have a great team, and to do that? And that's been probably some of the hardest work, like really discerning what are the values that are going to drive the organization. What's the right size? How we're gonna do that in this climate that everything seems to be on fire at the same time, and hold each other accountable and hold each other in love. So we've been trying to draw on that study to think about what does leadership look like.
No,
can I be mysterious for a moment?
Go ahead, be mysterious.
Because I think it might even merit a follow-up conversation. Because we're about to do something that we hope will benefit the field.
Yeah.
And we are going to be transparent and share.
Yeah.
The who, what, why, how, with joy.
Yes.
And so we may have to circle back
here for it
to that conversation, because going back to the question about theoretical, and what's meaningful.
Yeah.
If we can actually do it and practice it.
Yeah.
And then share it for others. That will be meaningful on another level as well.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. You heard it here first. We will go back and make a clip of this.
We giggle a lot here.
This is what she was talking about. All the months ago. Oh, for sure. Well,
I think you're muted.
Oh, no, I hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we lost your audio.
Oh, no. How about now?
It's showing your box is lighting up like you're talking, like we can see that you're talking, but we can't hear you.
I'm going to unplug and plug back in. All right, testing. Can you hear me now? That's weird.
Is it us? Because I see the little, when we're speaking, you can see the little thing.
Hear you. Let's see. Testing. Nothing. Can you hear me now? So weird. Let's see.
This is a chat.